up with you, see how things are from your end of it all, but you're just amazing.
Flyer screw pedal. We're doing a 3-week MCAT.
Nice.
So you can take those and
So for the class, or for, not just the class, like any?
in your
Absolutely, I can do that. But I just want to say hi to you. I haven't seen you, but things going well. One of these days we'll have to catch. Yeah, and say one of these days we'll have to catch up a bit for sure. So.
Alright, so a few orders of business before I turn it over to Nick. So we only have one more speaker after Nick today. We'll have some people in public health coming next week. The week after that is going to be the start of your presentations. I typed up a schedule. If you can't do the day that you're signed up for, so we'll have 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, and 3 weeks from now also on Wednesday, but 2:30 to 4:30. That's the slot of this class is supposed to have their final. So if you're signed up in a slot that you can't do, email me and let me know. I'm just going to set that up here with all of your papers to entice you to take them away from me. Questions about that? So double check your group is correct, the time is good. And then pick up your papers. There's detailed instructions of things that need to happen during your presentation. Everybody's presentation is going to be due the last Wednesday of class. So even if you're presenting the week after that, you still need to email me your presentation. So there's no advantage on the second day. So I can get them all loaded up and ready for a quick presentation. Alright, so then go on Google, get the instructions. Those will tell you exactly what I'll be grading you on. And then after Nick speaks today, I'm going to leave you guys with your faculty evaluation. You fill that out about me specifically, not about all of the presenters that you see. So because I'm going to be cutting out early while you guys do that, the assignment is going to be to discuss 5 common themes that speakers have brought up this semester. So an example is a lot of our speakers have been talking about keeping a good GPA. And I'm sure you've noticed a lot of different things that our speakers have all kind of mentioned. A couple of opportunities. If you want to volunteer for Girls in Science, that's this Saturday. Email shayla.fox@msubillings.edu. And then there's also Planned Parenthood internships. If you're interested, I'll leave this sheet up here on the table too. So, check the presentation schedule. You can keep these internship sheets if you're interested. Any questions? Start work on your group presentations. If you have someone who has not been receptive to your group presentation planning, let me know. There's a couple students who've gone missing from this class and I've signed them to groups, but I really don't expect you to be able to get them to work on your presentation with you. But keep me informed of that so they don't get a good grade when they don't deserve them. Anything else you guys want to talk about? We're winding up this semester. Alright, so we have a special speaker today. Nick actually helped me plan this class, so it'll be actually nice to him.
Thanks. Is there a light for that one? Hey, good to see you guys. Some of you I know, which is kind of fun. The rest of you guys I don't know. That's my name. It's kind of weird. It's Nick Pertwee, which is why I call it. Everybody just call me Nick. I'm here today to talk to you guys about just arena football, I think, right, Holly? Right? You guys want to hear it? I'm here to talk to you about PhD and CSCS, these letters after a name, what those mean and what they can do. Today's been kind of a weird day for me. I'm usually at about like 5,000 calories by this time of the day. I think I'm at like 200. I've had a weird day, so bear with me. I'm usually even more energetic than this. Just a real quick introduction. If you guys have had me in class, some of these slides will look familiar, but I have a PhD. There's no such thing as a double major in PhD, but I took it from two departments. At Texas Tech University, I did a PhD in curriculum and instruction. What department do you guys think that's under? Any guesses? Who said it? Education, yeah, that's under the education department. And then I did it in conjunction with health, exercise, and sports sciences. I'll get to talking about PhD and how you go about that pathway and what that means under the umbrella of health sciences. What does that mean under that? I also have a master's of science in kinesiology, an undergraduate in physical education. When I was, a lot of you guys might be freshmen, right? When I was a freshman, I was a philosophy major, double majoring with math, and I was a history minor because I knew I was going to go into law school and be a lawyer until one day I shadowed a lawyer and decided, no, not for me at all. You got to really love books, but of course so you do. You do for a PhD as well. I grew up in Billings. I just came back 2 years ago this is my wife, Laura, and this is our kid, Coda. For the past 6 years before that, and even overlapping with living up here, I was playing arena football during the summers. It was a good job, it was fun. And what it did for me in the fall and spring then, because of the degrees I'd gotten, and I'll talk about this, I was able to do consulting work, and I even did some teaching. I've taught for everywhere from the University of Texas to most recently Stanford University, and now I'm at the great Rocky Mountain College, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. So I don't know how it's worked with other speakers in the past, but anytime you guys can stop me as I talk about some things. I want to give you a background on how to get these things, but also then what does that mean within the health sciences? Because you've seen MDs, right? DOs, PT. This is a different leg of the health sciences umbrella when we talk about PhDs or CSCS. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is CSCS. This stands for Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. This is a certification that comes from something called the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Does anybody know, other than Tommy, you're not allowed to answer this question, does anybody know what are requirements, because I'm about to show you guys, to receive something like what's called a Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist? You might know any prereqs for that? Any guesses, thoughts? Who has heard of a CSCS before? Okay, so a few of you have heard that, right? A CSCS is probably the highest certification you can get if you're in the strength and conditioning world, right? And a strength and conditioning coach could range from people that work with athletes at the collegiate level, the professional level, or even just doing personal training. But most often than not, if you have what's called a CSCS, you're working with some higher level athletes, right? And I want to show you guys, in case this is something that you happen to become interested in, right? The way that you can get your CSCS is through what's called the National Strength and Conditioning Association. I know you guys can't read that very well because of how small it is, but if I were to go to prerequisites, one of the main prerequisites to get your CSCS is just that you have to have an undergraduate degree, and it has to be from an institution that's accredited by one of these accrediting agencies. Rocky Mountain College falls under that. So you could have an undergraduate degree in any field that you would like whatsoever, be able to take this, but you must hold at least a bachelor's degree. Additionally, you must also be CPR and AED certified. What's AED? Anybody know? It's a shock one. Yeah, automated external defibrillator is what that one is, right? And so to take this exam, that's your only the only two requirements, prerequisites that you have to have. However, this exam has a 70% fail rate. Why do you guys think? It's tough, right? Yeah, and you don't know what's on the test, right? People go into it going, oh, I got an exercise science degree, I can take this test, no problem, I'm good to go. It's a very in-depth course. It's a test, sorry. It's a test that I wouldn't tell anybody to take unless they've taken at least a full year of anatomy and physiology, right? Some chemistry, at least a semester, ideally a year of chemistry as well, and have a good biology background as well. So we see people when they take this exam, if I'm telling them to do this, you would need a very good biology background, a great anatomy and physiology background, and then we have changed one of our courses here at Rocky Mountain College. If this is of interest to you, ideally you would take HHP 475 your senior year if this became interesting to you, because that course, which we've moved to a 4-credit course, is something where we're going to dive very deep into the National Strength and Conditioning Association's textbook, and we will cover front cover to back cover all the material you need to know, from the physiology of a musculoskeletal system all the way to how do I do a program for a collegiate basketball team, right? So it covers a wide range of things. You have to know the body very well, but you have to also understand periodization of training as well. So far, so good. So with the CSCS, I want to tell you guys what I did. Well, one thing I did is, as I was getting my master's degree, and this is worth knowing, right? If you want to go on to a higher level degree, I was what we call the graduate assistant, right? And when you're a graduate assistant, you can get your school paid for. My school, I was the first strength and conditioning coach at the school. I had my CSCS because I took the test right after my senior year. And in return, they paid for my entire master's degree, they paid for my living on campus, and they paid for my meals on campus as well. So any money I needed to do, I would just do some personal training on the side. This is important to you guys because if this is a plan of yours, maybe to go into higher education or something beyond just your undergraduate degree, right? There's a reason they probably chose me out of the other candidates that applied, right? I had a 3.98 GPA in my undergraduate. I made sure I studied really well. I got my certification. I did personal training internships as I led into it. So it means a lot what you guys choose to do during this time and expose yourselves to. This class, I think, is a brilliant idea because you're exposing yourself to different things that you may become interested in, and throughout your college career, you'll get more experiences, setting yourself up for success within that. Pretty good. So I was a strength and conditioning coach for 2 years for Division II school, and then after that I started playing this funny game of football. And while I did that, I started doing some different training. When I got up to Montana, I realized that there wasn't a lot of training going on, and this is one thing you can do with it, right? I run something called Elite Sports Performance here through Granite Health and Fitness. We took over this performance leg of something that I'm sure you guys have heard of, which is called AMP, right? AMP, you see the signs out here. They do the athletic medicine and performance training. We took over the performance leg, and as a result, with the CSCS, you can do stuff like this, right? I could easily put up different camps. We've been very successful with those. We've had interns from Rocky that help us out with those things, and that was a source of income as well, where we ran summer camps, and then during the school year, I would work with different teams or different individuals. Right? I learned very quickly when I got into the personal training world, part of health science is training people, I started by charging people $20 an hour, right? That was my idea of like, okay, I got to get going. And pretty soon I had 5 clients, and I went, well, if I'm going to take on a 6th, I'm going to charge them $30. And I got to 8 clients, I went, well, if I'm going to take on a 9th, I'm going to start charging them $40 an hour, right? And then I got to the point where I was charging $75 an hour because that's what it was worth my time to take on a new client. Then I realized, oh, I could charge people $15 an hour and have 10 of them in a group, and suddenly, that's what that certification opened up for me, right? You can do personal training without those certifications, but when people see that sort of stuff after your name, it means that you have an expertise in that, and they're more likely to be able to pay something like that. So I changed it all to group training. It also means that when I do strength and conditioning, I make up workouts as well, right? I know you guys can't read all that. This is one of the workouts I'm working right now. If you go to MSUB's website, I'm the head strength and conditioning coach for MSU Billings as well. Just don't have enough things to do, so I do this in my spare time. This is one of the workouts we're doing with their men's basketball team right now. Right? Within this, from getting a CSCS, you learn about periodization. In other words, there should be something that this is leading up to, as well as why do we choose certain sets and reps, right? And so that's all stuff that we learned in undergraduate degree, but then became applied when I took that exam. So far, so good. Any questions yet? Okay, one final thing you do with something like a CSCS is while I was playing football, I would consult for athletic teams in the off season. I'll cover this. When I started teaching at the University of Texas, I bought some equipment. I'll get to that in a second. And part of that equipment is I could measure things like heart rate. That's what you guys see in red. I could measure speed stuff. Right, that's the blue spikes of speed. I use this system to look at different body loads as well as the work effort of different athletes, right? So by setting myself up to get a certain degree and a certain certification, I was able to work with teams from across the nation. I started with just soccer and then expanded quickly to all sorts of athletic teams because I could read something like this and make sense of it to the coach, right? Some of you guys have had me in class, so we'll see how much you remember. This is from the University of North Carolina Charlotte's men's soccer team, and they took the second in the nation the year I was working with them. Not because of me, they were good anyway, but we made sure we kept their best athletes healthy. This is one of their best athletes, and this was a guy that was coming back from injury. This was a practice they did, right? And what do you guys immediately notice in the difference in the heart rates? The top to bottom. Yeah, top is sharp, like mountains, peaks, and valleys, and the lower one's like rolling hills, isn't it? Right? And what happens so often is that people think they can just look at one metric and understand what's going on. Oh, this guy's average heart rate was 165. This guy's average heart rate was 140. Gosh, this guy must have been working harder the entire time, right? But if we understood this stuff, if we went to school, went to the classes, got these certifications, and got trained in this, right? One thing that we add expertise to is we say, not at all, right? They did the same workout, but what's important in sports is how fast people can recover. Whether it's soccer, hockey, basketball, or football, any anaerobic-based sport that has some sort of aerobic component to it, I care how fast people can recover. When I look at something like this, I see that this guy is recovering very quickly, hence the valleys that come right after the peaks of where his heart rate went up. This guy, he was recovering so slowly that when they played a small-sided game here at the end, when we got to halftime of the game, we took him out because we knew the risk of injury was so high because his body was not recovering. Right? So this is stuff that you could do with a CSCS certification or maybe a master's degree or above because you'd get trained on equipment, you could work with that. So I just want to give you guys a little insight into the world of strength and conditioning. It's more than just personal training. Here's a workout, yell at people, one more rep, lift it high. Right? We can go quite a bit into science and what's going on, but that takes understanding the sport, right? Understanding that recovery is a more important metric than just average heart rate. Any questions on CSCS, what that means again? Have you guys heard of any other certifications within the strength and conditioning world? Besides the NSCA's CSCS, does anybody know any others? By chance? Tommy? Want to throw one out there? No? Have you guys ever heard of the American College of Sports Medicine, ACSM, as well? Okay, so if this happens to be something that piques your interest, right, you're kind of interested in the strength and conditioning world, there are other certifications. The CSCS probably is one that kind of trumps of all of them if you were to look at different job qualifications. If I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach for a college team or professional team, one of the requirements is that you must have that certification, the CSCS certification. Okay, on we go then. The other thing I was going to talk to you guys about today then was something called a PhD, right? You've seen other people with different letters at the end of their name. A PhD is a Doctor of Philosophy, and it can come in quite a few different forms. It really means that I like this one. You could probably empathize with this, Holly. A PhD survivor. There's different routes to get there, right? Some programs, like a doctorate of physical therapy. Did you guys have a DPT come speak to you? Sometimes you can get into a program like that right after undergraduate degree. There's even PhDs in exercise science that come right after an undergraduate degree. I didn't know I wanted to get a PhD when I started my graduate program, so I went to a master's degree program, was a strength and conditioning coach, and then realized, gosh, I want to do quite a bit more. And I cared a lot about human motivation, setting people up to be successful, right, in an environment, and I already had this big background in health, exercise, and sports sciences, so I chose a program at Texas Tech University to get my PhD, and it was an additional 99 hours beyond my undergraduate degree. What's your undergraduate degree? How many hours do you guys need? Not even 160, a little less. You can get 160. 124, isn't it, Iraqi, right? 124. You often go over that, right? And so to get this, it was another 99, but I'd already done 39 credit hours of my my master's, so I asked them, hey, will you guys count this if I can get a double sort of certification in my PhD? And they said, nope. So I did another, after my master's degree, I did another 138 hours afterwards of credit hours. But it goes very in depth, right? It means when you start going into a PhD field, it means you become an expert in a small area, right? You dive very deep into it. Mine was in human motivation, behavior, especially within the world of academia and health, exercise, and sports sciences. Good. So what do you do with a PhD in health sciences, right? When it's under this umbrella of health sciences? Well, you have quite a few roles if this is a route you end up taking. And again, I didn't know it until even after I'd finished my master's degree that this might be a route to go. I didn't really even know what PhD meant in health sciences. Well, it's several roles. I'm just going to tell you the roles that I've done personally. And again, if you guys have any questions on them, it's definitely a teaching role. Right? When you're at the collegiate level, that you have this teaching responsibility, just as we do myself and Dr. Basta within class. Right? We want to spread knowledge on the subjects that we're experts in. For me, it also opened up the door of consulting. The way this started for me is one of my friends became a coach at a college, right? Well, as I started my doctorate degree, and he said, hey, why don't you come down and work with my team? It was a Division II team, a soccer team. He said, I think our strength and conditioning coach is a little off, right? He's given them the same workouts he's given them the basketball team. Can you come change that? So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And then fast forward 3 years, next thing I knew, I was working with Stanford University's team, because what would happen is I'd go from one school and then they'd refer me to another school, and I would get these trips paid for to go consult for different universities and try to tailor their programs to be more specific for the particular sport. Right? You also give presentations and talks, this being one of them, sometimes at conferences, because what we're hopefully doing is we're also doing some sort of research within our field as well. Right? We are trying to push the envelope a little bit of what's going on within our field. We do advising, as you guys know, right? We try to help others that maybe are interested in our field. And then I put this last part, application. In other words, are we influencing the practice within our field? For me, that's the exercise science world, but it's also the human behavior and motivational world. Right? And once you think you have it all figured out, like I had it all figured out, I was going to come back to Montana. I knew that I'd look for a job and I would teach in the realm of exercise science. I'd stay within the realm of consulting, maybe a little bit of human behavior. I was happy with that. And then all of a sudden, something called community health fell into my lap. And I didn't know much about community health, but I was asked to help on a project, and suddenly now I have some research projects going. I'm going to share one of those with you guys, and I'm going to show you why this matters and how a PhD kind of goes about using data to influence their behavior, their teaching patterns, as well as how we use data to apply that to our real-world jobs. Right? So one thing I did right in the past is I used to work with athletes. This is a practice that doesn't give you much information, but I would utilize GPS enabled tools, heart rate monitoring systems, speed system. This is from Garmin. This is an overview page. It doesn't give you much information, but I would try to collect data in the sports science world, and I would regurgitate that for coaches to make their practices more applicable to actual game type settings. Right? And I did pretty good in that. That's where I made a good part of my living. I would look at warm-ups. How well is a warm-up? How progressive is it leading into right before a game? How long does it last? Are we spiking at the right time? Right? And so I would use this sort of data, these systems. This one was a watch one that they used, and then a GPS monitoring system that went around. This was the heart rate, and then on top of it, actually I have it, there was a GPS monitoring system that all the athletes would wear something, essentially that looked like a sports bra, and they would put this in there as well, male or female. Well, all right, here you go, right here. This little guy right here. So I could collect a lot of information from this because I could figure out where they ran on a field, their load. You get that data I put up earlier with the heart rate of comparing the two athletes. It came from this little thing right here, something I can recharge. This, by the way, is an $1,800 piece of plastic with some pretty fancy things inside of it. Right? So what we do is with our PhD is we write grants, we try to get technology, and then we use that technology to apply it to real world settings. So far, So good. I had it all figured out because that's the sports world. And then all of a sudden I get to Billings, and if you guys have had me for health and wellness, this will look familiar, some of these slides. I get to Billings and I get thrown on a couple committees, and all of a sudden I'm getting asked my opinion on how we influence health of everybody, not just athletes. What about community health, population health? So I did what we learn in our PhD programs is we go to data, right? What data is already out there? Either we need to collect data and analyze it, or we need to look at what's already out there. So I'm going to do a very quick 3-minute through this, and I'm going to ask you guys' opinion what you would do. If you've had me for class, you don't get to answer. We want to see what everybody else would do, right? Here's what they asked me about. They want me to help improve the health in Billings, Montana, right? And I'm all about that. Here's some data about the United States in general. When you look at the top 34 advanced countries in the world, this is from this organization, the OECD, the United States, when it comes to 34, life expectancy of men, we're at 26. Life expectancy of women, we're at 29. We're in the bottom third when you look at the top 34 advanced countries, right? When you look at healthcare coverage, access to care, we're tied for last, third, and there's a bunch of countries number one. Why? Why is our access to care considered last? What do you guys think? Any thoughts? What do you think those countries have that we don't have?
Socialized medicine.
Yeah, they have universal health care. Yeah, right? It's more socialized. Everybody's covered under their health care system. We have a goal to be universally covered, but we're not there. So our access to care is lower than other countries. We spend a lot. We're finally number one, how much we spend on health per person in the world, right? But that doesn't buy us more doctors. Look, we're still in the bottom third when it comes to doctors per person, right? Nurses per person, we're in the middle. We're in the middle third. Hospital beds, bottom third again. So what's this money buying us? Well, it's buying us lots of neat technology, right? We have more MRI units per capita and more CT scanners per capita than any other country. So we look at stuff like this, and we also look at, okay, life expectancy at birth. Here's the average. The United States is below average. Here's the US. We're below average, right? When you look at how much the US spends per person, we're number one. When you graph that, and that's part of our job to take data and look at it and analyze it, and when you put it on a graph, notice anybody that stands out from that graph, right? We notice that the United States, we spend more than any other country in the world, right? But that doesn't equate to living longer. In other words, it's not improving our health as it should. So, as a researcher within the health sciences, that's maybe what a PhD would do no matter what you particularly get that PhD in, we look at research and we go, what can we do about this? What's driving this? Because often when we see an outlier like this, we want to know what's the overarching issue, because the less we can do, if I can fix one problem and as a result I fix 5 problems, that's what I want to do, right? If I want somebody to run faster, I always give this example, we know that speed is stride length times stride frequency. How big of steps I take times how fast I can turn those over, right? But if I work on those things, I actually don't create a faster runner. The overarching issue of those things is something called force per pound. If I had 2 150-pound athletes and one of them could squat more than the other one, he could create more force than this other athlete, I could, without even putting him on track, tell you that he's going to beat him in a sprint. Because force per pound of an athlete means that they actually will take a bigger stride and they'll turn those strides over quicker. Right? Who's the fastest person in the world right now? Do you know? Who's the 100 meters? Usain Bolt, right? You're going to go watch him this summer in the Summer Olympics, right? Usain Bolt, right? When he turns his legs over, he takes less strides to finish that 100 meters than other athletes, right? He's also light and he has a big frame, but he's creating more force, and as a result of that force, his strides are a little bit bigger. So what's the overarching issue here is what we ask ourselves. So I looked into that, right? Despite the spending, we have poor life expectancy, the worst obesity problem out of these 34 countries, we don't have universal health care, and we still have a very poor ratio of physicians per person, a hospital per person. This is a problem we need to fix. So we look at the overarching issue. Overarching issues are, for example, something like this. On average, there's almost two mass shootings in the United States per day, right? It's a problem. What's often said, what is the media normally say is the problem for mass shootings? Guns, right? We blame guns, right? In reality, when you look at an overarching issue, you say, okay, what do these have in common? What's driving them? And this might be a better picture of what's really going on, right? It's no problem to get guns, but you want help for mental health care? Good luck, right? It costs a lot of money. You got to jump through a lot of hoops just to prove maybe even depressed or have bipolar. So this would be an overarching issue, the fact that it's very difficult to get access to health care, mental health care, but it's very easy access to get to guns. So what's driving this? Anybody want to guess, if you haven't been in my class before? Anybody want to guess what's driving the fact that we spend more money than any other country, yet we're not living, right? We're this outlier. Any guesses on an overarching issue? It's okay to be wrong, too. No thoughts. All right, what if you had me for class? Anybody remember? Oh, come on. No thoughts whatsoever from you guys from health and wellness? How about this? How about if I give a hint? What is it? Poverty, right? Poverty is the overarching issue, right? You dive into the data and you notice something. This is just here in Yellowstone County, right? In Yellowstone County, low income is the purple bar, middle of the high income is the gray bar, and when we collect information every 4 years, now we're actually every 3 years, we're about to do another one, we do something called a community health needs assessment, and we ask a bunch of questions. We try to get data on to give us an accurate picture of what's going on with the health in our county. You notice difficulty accessing healthcare in the past year, it more than doubles when you have low income. Right? What about difficulty accessing affordable produce? Right? Just things to keep you proactively healthy. Right? Well, that's not a big problem if you're middle high income. If you're up here, it's like triple, right? So it makes it more difficult. We notice across the board, fair or poor overall health. Almost 6 times as likely to have fair or poor overall health if you have low income. So poverty is a driving force. As we dive deeper into the data, that's part of what you do within the PhD, you might notice something else, and I did. I went to something called Healthy People 2020, and they said food security is the linchpin to healthy living. So I looked up food security. It means people have enough food at the end of the day, end of the week, they know where it's going to come from. I thought, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's food security that's the problem. So I looked up food security, and I found out that the United States spends $50 billion a year, right, on nutrition assistance programs. Awesome. We should be helping people that are in need of nutrition. In 1995, we were at 12%. By 2010, we had the goal of 6% by pouring $50 billion a year into it. How close do you think we got? All of you would leave that as a rhetorical question. We went the opposite direction. We went from 12% up to 14%. Right? That's a problem. And so as a researcher, we would look at that and go, what's going on here? What about in Yellowstone County in Montana? Yep, we're at 12.1%. This was as of 2014, I believe. And as a state, we're actually just above the average of the United States. That means over 1 out of 10 people in the state of Montana don't know where food's coming from at the end of the week. End of the month, they're running out of food. That's a problem, right? And so I go, all right, well, food insecurity must be the problem, until I really look at food insecurity and I say, what causes food insecurity? Well, single women with children, that definitely makes it jump up quite a bit. You got a 1 to 3 chance happening. But look which one stands out again above everything else. Oh, if you're living in the poverty ratio, or all the way up to 185% of the poverty ratio, meaning a family of 4 makes about $43,000 or less per year, you have a 1 in 3 chance that you're living food insecure. So again, poverty comes up as the overarching issue. And so we recognize that and we go, okay, what can I do about something like that, right? This is from a national organization called Health Leads. They know this. Medical doctors, the people that have spoken to you this semester, they know this stuff. They know when they give medicine, it's treating an illness, right? But they know these people will return if these basic resources aren't being met. St. V's was fined somewhere around $385,000 last October. Why? Because they have Medicare, right? Medicare and Medicaid are government-sponsored insurances, and if people get readmitted within 30 days, it's called a readmittance point. They surpassed the points they could have, and as a result, they were fined quite a bit of money. Why were these people being readmitted? Did the medicine not work? It probably did its job. It's medicine. But these people, they have other problems. When they send these people home and they leave the hospital and they still have food, water, electricity, and transportation needs that aren't being met, basic resource needs being met, the medicine won't have a lasting or long effect. Right? So part of our job, and the reason I wanted to go through slide by slide on that, is this is the sort of stuff we look at. Right? We go to data, either we collect it ourselves or we look at data. We try to analyze a problem, and we try to come to the root of that problem. Because if we can solve the root solution, then as a result, maybe we solve a lot of the tentacles and the branches as well. Right? So I'm going to ask your guys' opinion of what you think we did or what we're doing right now to try to help solve this problem in a second. But here's another problem we noticed, by the way, too. I'm going to give you a second problem. We noticed this. Remember, this is life expectancy. This is average, right in the middle here. Here again is the United States below average. What happens when you ask us how healthy we are? We're not living as long as other countries, but what happens when you go, are you guys healthy? You would think we'd answer something like, yeah, we're below average, right? We're down here somewhere. when you ask us perceived health status, we're not below average anymore, we're top 3. In other words, we think we're pretty healthy, right? We think we're pretty good. In fact, I know this would be hard for you guys to read from there. It says 88% of us, right? 88% of us say good or very good. Another 9% say fair. 97% of us, we're good or fair, at least better. We're not in poor health. Only 3% of us are in poor health when you ask us, right? Maybe that's just a problem with poverty. Maybe poverty is still driving this issue, right? So we go to the data again and we look at what if we held for the income, right? What if we took income out of it? United States, here we are still, top 3, right? Now the highest income says 96% of us, we're good. If you have high income. But even the lowest of income, 73%, 3 out of 4 people, I'm fine, no big deal. Even though we just saw data that says the exact opposite, we're dying sooner than other countries, we have poor health as a result of poverty, we don't believe we do. Right? So here's the problem. Oh, even in Yellowstone County. Sorry, I forgot about this slide. Right? Even in Yellowstone County, how are you doing? Excellent, 20%. Very good. I'm going to round that to 35. 55% of it. What about another good? I'll round that down to 28%. Right? So now we're up to 83% of us in Yellowstone County are good, very good, or excellent. Remember the other slide when almost 40-something% of the lower income people aren't doing good? Right? Yet we believe we are. So there's another problem as well. We have 2 problems, right? We have big problems. We spend more on healthcare than any other country in the world. Yet our health markers are poor average almost across the board. Poverty is clearly an overarching issue driving these health problems. Right? Even if you're a selfish person, poverty it should be a problem for you because it drives your own healthcare costs up. Right? You should care that, even if you didn't even care about other people, you just care about money. It's a problem no matter how you look at it. And maybe worst of all, right, despite not being in gate shape literally and figuratively, we think we are. We believe we are. So, what do you guys think we did? This is what we do as researchers, right? We look at health problems, community health not being my background, right? I looked at this problem with a group of people and we said, okay, what can we do about it here in Yellowstone County? What do you guys think we did, or any thoughts? Again, not counting the people that I've had before. Yes, I like that. Okay, so education could be a problem. Why did you say education?
Because a lot of people think they're unhealthy, but obviously they are. So maybe not like food and exercise and living a healthier life.
Yeah, right. What does healthy even mean, right? Does it just mean that I feel good? Does it mean I look good? Does it mean I eat the right food? Do I take into account depression, stressors in my life? When I measure my health, is it just my blood pressure? All right, I'm good to go. Right? Maybe we don't have a good understanding of health, so education could be a good one. I like it. Really, really good. Any other guesses on things that we looked at and did? I'll tell you guys. I just wanted you to think. I know if I ask questions, even if you don't answer, I know your minds at least turn through at least a couple notches of thinking about it. So I'll tell you what we did. Right? One thing we did is this. We noticed that there's a program called Health Leads where they use students, and we're starting this, by the way, in the fall, might be recruiting some of you guys, where we try to bridge the gap between current basic resource needs and the people that need those resources. Right? We wanted to use students because we wanted to empower people, not just enable them. A problem with the food stamps and the food assistance programs, right, isn't that we should take them away, but they don't do a lot to empower people. They just an enabler. In other words, if this was a perceived barrier, right, not having enough food, and you just kept giving me things, but you kept me behind this barrier, I haven't really solved the problem. Right? That's called enablement. Empowerment means I give you the tools to break down that barrier, step around it, and suddenly then you can take control of your own life again. Right? We talk a lot in our health and wellness course about the fact that if you want to be a healthy person, you have to feel like you're in control and your actions actually make a difference. So we looked at this, and you don't have to read all this, but I put this up here because if you want to pay somebody to follow people around that need help with housing or food or water, right, or these transportation, well, people that go to school for a long period of time, they want to get paid a good amount of money, right? You guys are probably here because you didn't come to school to Rocky because you want to make $15,000 a year, $20,000 a year. Community health workers in Montana make about $24,000 a year. It's probably not why you came to college, right, to make that much. So we realized we're not going to get a lot of people going into this field, not highly trained people. But what if we could utilize people that we know are motivated know we're pretty smart, right? Know they want to make a difference, and yet can maybe get some college credit or some internship hours, maybe even a little bit of pay out of it while they're in school, and we could bridge a gap where the places like Riverstone Health have a problem. They have no problem telling you to go to where to go for housing assistance or food assistance. They have a problem of following up with you and making sure that actually you got around the barrier to make sure it happened. That's where students could step in, right? People come into like Riverstone Health, that's who we're working with. They would fill out their normal information, and they might check a box. Do you need help with food? Do you need help with housing? Absolutely, right? Our job as researchers, one thing I do with this degree of a PhD, is I try to solve this problem utilizing the resources we have at hand. Well, we have lots of students around this, between MSU Billings and Rocky. We can actually make a big difference. And as a result of that, we already know from other research that community health workers can help cut down on readmittance and make communities healthier. So we try to use that information here in Billings to create what I call a win-win-win-win situation. A win for individuals because we're not just empowering them. We're calling them afterwards and going, hey, did you get that help for housing? And they go, oh, no. I go, why not? I don't know how to get there. Right? I don't have no transportation to get there. Oh, no problem. Hey, Mr. Smith, we're going to go drop off a bus pass for you tomorrow at Riverstone Health. We're going to ride the bus with you this first time to make sure you understand the map system. And then we've now taken enablement out of it and we've empowered them. They can do it on their own, right? And we keep doing that till they feel like their need has been met, and then we try to break those down. Maybe they can help somebody else in their community as well, right? It's a win for medical institutions because we take away from costs. Remember St. V's? They were fined a lot of money. Do you think if we could prove that we could cut down on readmittance costs, they might throw some money our way? That's part of, by the way, sometimes our job as researchers is we try to get grant funding so we can put it in our pockets and okay. So we can take programs and actually make a difference in the fields that we care about, right? So if we can show this works, that's our goal over the next year, then our goal then in return would be go to the big hospitals and Riverstone and say, can we get a little kickback to make sure this program works? They'll do that because it cuts down on their costs in the end. Right? It's a win also for the college students. You guys, if you ever want to be involved, you can read that whole thing. But what if you ended up in trouble? Well, now you know how basic resources work, right? But you also do stuff like you would be able to help others and help access those resources. Maybe that becomes your profession. And finally, it's a win for the community of Billings because that was the goal in the first place, right? As part of our jobs as researchers, we had an initial goal, and that was the big thing there, right? How do I create a healthier place? So one step is to definitely help the people that are already in need. The other step is to help those that don't need the need or make sure that they realize they need it. And you hit the nail on the head with, what do we need to do with that? Education, without a doubt, right? We need to educate. If I don't understand what it means to be healthy, or if I believe something like BMI, body mass index, where it's just my height and weight, that defines who I am as an individual, right? I, by the way, fall under the obesity category, right? I'm just above overweight, right, at obese, right? If I believe that was what labeled me, and that's what would define my health or not, then maybe I'd have a skewed idea of what health even really meant. Maybe it's more than just blood pressure. Maybe it's more than even just physical health. Maybe there's spiritual health, social health, intellectual health, right? And maybe there's ways to take measurements. So education suddenly becomes a big play in what we do as educators within our degree to say, look, we want to make sure you understand what it even means to be healthy. On top of that, I wrote a bunch of stuff down here. I think we should teach students about lots of different things that maybe we don't do a good job of, and this is one of the things that drove me to stay in the education side of it. Like maybe we should teach about healthcare, right? Can anybody give a quick 30-second overview of our healthcare system? No, we can't, right? We don't even understand it well. Maybe that should be part of education, right, in the system. I'd say we talk about food. We don't have an obesity problem. We don't. We have a nutrition problem and we have a physical activity problem. Fix those two things and we'd get rid of anything that dealt with obesity, right? We don't eat food. We eat a lot of food-like items, right? What's in Cheetos? Who knows? I recognize some of those things like in other like equipment that I use. Right? I even said stuff like teach every kid how to run. If I were to, if you guys go, hey Nick, show us how to throw, and I were to give it one of these, you guys wouldn't go, just do that harder and faster, you'll be good, right? You'd go, maybe fix that a little bit. Right? Everybody throws a little different, even professional pitchers throw a little bit different, but there's a technique to it. Why don't we teach people how to run? Right? By the way, if you want to know how to run, here's an easy solution for you. Take off your shoes, go on cement, and start to run. If it doesn't hurt, you're running right. If it hurts, you're running wrong, right? A lot of times people hit their heel first. That hurts really bad. So if you were to run light and smooth, that's an easy solution to know if you're running correctly as well. Perhaps we should teach those things. What about how to manage money, financing, mental health? What if we just taught about real life stressors? We could actually help, right? So this is part of my deal, is education to influence the policies right here in Billings with like School District 2. So I serve on a committee called the School Health Advisory Committee. The only reason they asked me to be on that is because of my educational background of a PhD within this field of health sciences. Make sense? So, not to bore you, not just to make you guys go with those problems, I wanted you to see a process by which we work within the health world if you decide to go down the route of something like a PhD. I leave it with this slide. This is my final slide. There are lots of initiatives going on around the world. Last October, the United Nations, they unanimously, finally, right, passed something called the Global Goals. How many of you guys heard of the Global Goals? Those of you in my class, which are like, oh, you heard of it? Nice, I like it. It should be front page news, and it's not, right? So within the health sciences, one of the complaints I have is this isn't, right? This isn't what makes news, yet it should. Right? All of the United Nations came together to say by 2030, here's our goals. Those are some pretty cool goals. No poverty, awesome. They're not in order, by the way. It's not like gender equality, you're fit. They're just all goals that they're trying to accomplish. That's a big deal. But the health world doesn't get a lot of media attention. Right? It's not always racy or edgy. What we try to do then is we try to spread that through education as much as possible. And that's a big goal of ours within the PhD world if you go into that for health sciences. Any questions from you guys for either one of those letters that we use after our names? That's all I got. I don't know if I'm supposed to say or do anything else. Is that pretty good?
If you look at them for a second, they'll come up with a question.
Oh, really? Okay. Any questions from you guys? Anything that piqued your interest or thoughts?
What do you think that program is going to be undergoing?
Right now we're in a like a holding pattern right now. I'm working with environmental science. There was a professor named Luke Ward. He wants to do a geographic information system. Am I right on that? Do you know? GIS mapping. We want to, when people mark those little boxes, we also want to know where they're marking the boxes from. So right now we've submitted paperwork to Riverstone Health. Their lawyers are going through it. We wanted to start this month in April, hopefully May at the latest. And so because we need to collect enough data to know what we're going to focus on the top 3 or 4 main needs. So my goal is by the fall, anybody that enrolls in health and wellness, I would be utilizing them in the class. Good question. And then a year later, we'd hope to use that data then to try to get funding to really make it a mainstream thing. However, Riverstone Health, because we've presented to them already, they're building a new building and they're creating an office space just for us in that new building as a result of it. So there are changes being made, which is kind of cool. So, good question. Any others? I saw this up here. This GPA matters. I think that's probably been a common theme. I imagine it does matter. It helps. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
All right, don't go again. You gotta fill out the status evaluation.
Yep. I'll hang out.